Marcus Reed adjusted his expensive watch as he stepped out of his black luxury car. The 35-year-old billionaire had built his empire from nothing, and today he was visiting the children's hospital downtown to make a donation. His assistant had arranged everything perfectly as usual. The cameras would capture his generous act, and tomorrow's newspapers would praise his charity work. The hospital lobby buzzed with activity. Nurses hurried past carrying charts. Doctors discussed cases in hushed tones, and worried families sat in waiting areas. Marcus felt uncomfortable in this environment. He preferred boardrooms and five-star restaurants to places filled with sick children and desperate parents. Still, his public image required these appearances. As he walked toward the elevator, Marcus noticed a young woman sitting alone near the pediatric ward. She looked exhausted, her clothes wrinkled and her eyes red from crying. In her lap sat a little girl, maybe 4 years old, who appeared very weak. The child's pale skin and thin frame suggested she was seriously ill. The woman seemed to be counting crumpled bills from her purse, her hands shaking slightly. Marcus could see the worry etched across her face as she looked at the small amount of money she had gathered. She whispered something to the little girl, who smiled weakly and hugged her mother tighter. Marcus continued toward his meeting with the hospital director, but something about the scene bothered him. He had seen poverty before, of course, but usually from a safe distance. This felt different somehow. The raw emotion on the woman's face reminded him of his own mother during his childhood, when money was tight and medical bills seemed impossible to pay. After his photo opportunity and donation presentation, Marcus decided to walk back through the lobby instead of taking the private exit his assistant had arranged. The woman was still there, now speaking quietly with a nurse who was shaking her head sympathetically. Marcus caught fragments of their conversation as he passed. "The treatment costs are beyond what we can work with," the nurse was saying gently. "Without insurance or a payment plan, I'm afraid there's nothing more we can do here. You might try the county hospital, but their waiting list is very long." The woman's shoulders sagged with defeat. "How long does Emma have without treatment?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't give you specifics, but time is important with her condition," the nurse replied softly. "I'm sorry I can't be more helpful." Marcus felt his chest tighten unexpectedly. He had never paid much attention to individual stories of hardship, viewing them as unfortunate but inevitable parts of life. But watching this mother hold her sick daughter while facing impossible choices stirred something unfamiliar in him. As the woman stood up to leave, carrying her daughter carefully, Marcus noticed her purse was hanging open. The little money she had been counting was visible, along with what looked like medical papers and prescription bottles. She walked slowly, as if each step required enormous effort. Marcus followed at a distance, not really understanding why. His rational mind told him to get in his car and return to his office, where important deals waited for his attention. But something kept him walking behind this stranger and her child. Near the hospital's main entrance, the woman stopped to rest. She set her daughter down gently and knelt to retie the child's shoes. The little girl swayed slightly, clearly weak from whatever illness she was fighting. Other people walked past without noticing, lost in their own concerns. It was then that Marcus made a decision that surprised even him. He approached the woman slowly, not wanting to startle her. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "I couldn't help but notice you and your daughter. Is everything all right?" The woman looked up at him suspiciously. She was probably in her late 20s with kind eyes that had seen too much struggle. "We're fine, thank you," she said, though her voice suggested otherwise. "I'm Marcus," he said, crouching down to be at eye level with the little girl. "What's your name, princess?" "Emma," the child whispered, managing a small smile. "Are you a doctor?" "Mommy says the doctors are going to make me feel better." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "No, I'm not a doctor, but I know some very good ones." He looked up at the mother. "What's Emma's condition, if you don't mind me asking?" The woman hesitated, clearly uncomfortable discussing personal matters with a stranger. "She has a rare blood disorder," she finally said. "The treatment exists, but it's very expensive and we don't have insurance that covers it." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. He pulled out his business card and handed it to her. "My name is Marcus Reed. I'd like to help if you'll let me." The woman stared at the card, her eyes widening as she recognized the name. "You're the Marcus Reed? The businessman who owns all those companies?" "That's me," Marcus confirmed. "And I think Emma deserves the best medical care available." Would you allow me to cover her treatment costs? Tears began flowing down the woman's face. I don't understand. Why would you help us? You don't even know us. Marcus looked at Emma, who was watching their conversation with curious eyes. Sometimes we meet people who remind us what's truly important, he said simply. Would you mind telling me your name? Sarah, the woman said through her tears. Sarah Chen, and I can't possibly accept such an enormous gift from a stranger. It's not a gift, Marcus replied. It's an investment in Emma's future. Every child deserves a chance to grow up healthy and happy. As they talked, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years. The cold, calculating businessman who made decisions based purely on profit margins seemed to fade away, replaced by someone who genuinely cared about these two strangers' well-being. Sarah wiped her eyes and looked at Marcus with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. I don't know what to say. This is like a miracle. Say you'll let me help, Marcus replied. That's all I need to hear. Little did Marcus know that this chance encounter would change his life in ways he never could have imagined. The businessman who had spent years building walls around his heart was about to discover that true wealth had nothing to do with money in the bank. Over the following weeks, Marcus found himself visiting the hospital more frequently than his busy schedule should have allowed. He told himself he was simply checking on Emma's progress, ensuring the medical team had everything they needed for her treatment. But deep down, he knew there was more to it than that. Sarah had been hesitant to accept his help at first, insisting she would find a way to pay him back somehow. Marcus had gently refused any talk of repayment, explaining that helping Emma brought him more satisfaction than any business deal ever could. This was true, though it puzzled him greatly. The treatment was going well. Emma's energy was slowly returning and her color was improving with each passing day. The doctors were optimistic about her recovery, which filled Marcus with an unfamiliar sense of joy. He had grown fond of the little girl's bright smile and endless questions about his work and life. Sarah, meanwhile, had proven to be remarkably strong and intelligent. Despite her difficult circumstances, she maintained a positive attitude for Emma's sake. Marcus learned that she worked 2 jobs to support them both, cleaning offices at night and serving tables during the day. She had been saving every penny for months, hoping to afford Emma's treatment, when he had appeared like an answer to her prayers. During one of his visits, Marcus noticed Sarah looking tired and stressed despite Emma's improvement. When he asked about it, she reluctantly explained that she had been missing work to stay with Emma during treatments, and her employers weren't understanding about her absences. I might lose both jobs, she admitted quietly, while Emma napped in her hospital bed. But I can't leave her alone during the procedures. She gets scared without me here. Marcus felt anger rising in his chest at the thought of employers who couldn't show compassion for a mother caring for her sick child. You shouldn't have to choose between work and Emma, he said firmly. Let me make some calls. No, please, Sarah said quickly. You've already done so much. I can't ask for anything more. You're not asking, Marcus replied. I'm offering. And besides, I might have a better solution. The next day, Marcus surprised Sarah with a job offer. His company needed someone to coordinate their charitable foundation's activities, and he thought she would be perfect for the role. The position paid well, offered excellent benefits including health insurance and, most importantly, provided flexible hours so she could care for Emma. Sarah stared at him in disbelief. Are you serious? You're offering me a job at your company? The foundation needs someone who understands what families in crisis are going through, Marcus explained. You have that experience plus the intelligence and compassion needed for this work. It's not charity, you'd be earning the position. But I don't have a college degree, Sarah protested. I dropped out when Emma was born because I couldn't afford both tuition and childcare. Experience matters more than degrees, Marcus assured her. Besides, the company has education benefits. You could finish your studies while working if that's something you want to pursue. Tears filled Sarah's eyes again. I don't understand why you're being so kind to us. People like you don't usually notice people like me. Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering her words. Maybe that's been my problem, he said finally. I've spent so many years focused on making money that I forgot what money should be used for. Emma and you have reminded me. As the weeks passed, Sarah proved to be excellent at her new job. She had a natural ability to connect with families in need, and help them navigate the foundation's resources. Marcus found himself looking forward to their daily meetings, where she would update him on various cases and propose new initiatives. Emma was thriving too. The treatment had been successful and she was back to being a normal, energetic 4-year-old. She had taken to calling Marcus Uncle Marcus and would run to hug him whenever he visited. The simple joy on her face when she saw him made his heart feel full in a way he had never experienced. One afternoon, Marcus was having lunch with his usual circle of wealthy friends at an exclusive restaurant. They were discussing their latest investments and acquisitions when Marcus mentioned his work with the foundation. "You're spending too much time on charity work," his friend Richard warned. "It's affecting your focus on profitable ventures. The shareholders won't appreciate this soft approach to business." "Some things are more important than shareholder profits," Marcus replied, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. His friends exchanged glances. "Listen, Marcus," another friend said carefully. "We're worried about you. This isn't like you at all. You're getting emotionally involved with these charity cases and it's clouding your judgment." "Maybe my judgment needed some clouding," Marcus responded. "I've made more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. What's the point of accumulating more wealth if it doesn't make a positive difference in the world?" "The point is winning," Richard said bluntly. "The point is being the best, having the most, staying ahead of the competition. That's who you are, Marcus. Don't lose sight of that because of some sob story about a sick kid." Marcus felt his temper flare, but he controlled it. "That sick kid has a name. Her name is Emma, and she's one of the bravest people I've ever met. Her mother, Sarah, works harder than any CEO I know, and they've both taught me more about real success than any business school ever could." The conversation grew uncomfortable, and Marcus realized how much his priorities had shifted. The things that had once motivated him, competition, accumulation, status, now seemed empty and meaningless compared to the satisfaction he felt from helping Emma and Sarah. That evening, Marcus sat in his penthouse apartment overlooking the city. The space felt cold and lonely, filled with expensive art and furniture that had no personal meaning to him. He thought about Sarah's small apartment, which he had visited once to drop off some documents. Despite its modest size, it had felt warm and lived in, full of Emma's drawings and small mementos that told the story of their life together. For the first time in years, Marcus wondered if he had been pursuing the wrong kind of success all along. He had achieved everything he thought he wanted: wealth, power, recognition. But none of it had brought him the kind of contentment he felt when Emma laughed at his silly jokes or when Sarah smiled gratefully at his help. His phone buzzed with a text message from Sarah. "Emma wanted me to tell you good night. She's drawing you a picture for tomorrow. Thank you for everything, Marcus." "Sweet dreams," Marcus smiled as he read the message. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. 3 months after Emma's successful treatment, Marcus found himself spending most of his free time with Sarah and Emma. What had started as concern for a sick child had evolved into something deeper and more meaningful. He looked forward to their weekend outings to the park, their quiet dinners at family restaurants, and Emma's bedtime stories that somehow always featured a prince who looked suspiciously like him. Sarah had blossomed in her new role at the foundation. Her natural empathy and organizational skills had helped dozens of families navigate medical crises, and Marcus was proud to see her confidence grow. She had also started taking evening classes toward her degree, something that filled him with admiration for her determination. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, Marcus was pushing Emma on the swings at their favorite park when his phone rang. It was his lawyer, sounding urgent. "Marcus, we have a serious problem," the lawyer said. "There's been some unusual activity with your accounts. Someone has been making unauthorized transactions." Marcus felt his blood run cold. "What kind of transactions?" "Small amounts, but frequent. It looks like someone has access to your personal banking information. The total stolen so far is about $50,000. While $50,000 was not a significant amount to Marcus, the violation felt personal and disturbing. "Do we know who's responsible?" "The bank is investigating, but the transactions are coming from someone who clearly has intimate knowledge of your spending patterns and account details." "This isn't a random hacker, it's someone close to you." After hanging up, Marcus felt sick to his stomach. The idea that someone he trusted was stealing from him brought back painful memories from his childhood, when his father had been cheated by a business partner he considered a friend. That betrayal had eventually led to their family losing their home. He tried to push the thoughts away and focus on Emma, who was excitedly telling him about a butterfly she had spotted. But the lawyer's words kept echoing in his mind. Someone close to him was stealing from him. But who? Over the next few days, Marcus found himself looking at everyone around him with suspicion. His assistant, who handled many of his personal affairs. His housekeeper, who had access to his home office. Even his closest friends who knew details about his financial situation. The bank's investigation revealed that the thefts were being made using a mobile banking app, accessed with what appeared to be legitimate login credentials. Someone had either guessed his passwords or had physical access to his phone at some point. As Marcus reviewed his recent activities, trying to think of when someone might have gained access to his personal information, a terrible thought occurred to him. Sarah worked for his company now. She had been to his apartment. She knew about his wealth and his generous nature. The thought made him feel physically ill, but he couldn't shake it. Sarah was struggling financially when they met. Despite her new job, she was still paying off old medical bills and debt. She would have opportunity and motive. Marcus tried to dismiss these suspicions, reminding himself of Sarah's character and integrity. But doubt crept in gradually, poisoning his thoughts. He found himself watching her more carefully, looking for signs of deception. During one of their weekly foundation meetings, Marcus noticed Sarah seemed nervous and distracted. When he asked if everything was all right, she quickly assured him that it was, but her smile seemed forced. That evening, Marcus's private investigator called with an update on the banking fraud case. "We've traced the IP address of the unauthorized logins," the investigator said. "The access points are coming from several locations around the city, including some near where your employee Sarah Chen lives." Marcus felt his heart sink. "That doesn't prove anything," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. "No, but there's something else. We found evidence that someone has been researching your personal financial information online, using search terms that suggest they know specific details about your accounts. The searches were made from a computer at the public library branch near Ms. Chen's apartment." Marcus sat in stunned silence. The evidence was circumstantial, but it painted a troubling picture. Sarah had opportunity, motive, and now there was evidence placing her near activities related to the theft. That weekend, when Sarah and Emma came over for their usual dinner and movie night, Marcus found himself unable to enjoy their company. He watched Sarah's every move, looking for signs of guilt or deception. When she excused herself to use the bathroom, he noticed she had left her purse on the couch, and he felt an overwhelming urge to search through it. Emma, with a child's instinct for tension, seemed to sense that something was wrong. "Uncle Marcus, are you sad?" she asked, climbing onto his lap. "Just tired, princess," Marcus replied, trying to smile for her benefit. "Mommy says when people are sad, hugs make them feel better," Emma said, wrapping her small arms around his neck. Marcus hugged her back, feeling guilty for suspecting her mother of betraying his trust. But the doubt had taken root, and he couldn't shake it. After Sarah and Emma left that night, Marcus made a decision that would haunt him for weeks to come. He decided to set a trap. He would leave his phone unlocked in Sarah's presence and see if she took the opportunity to access his banking information. The plan made him feel sick, but he convinced himself it was necessary. If Sarah was innocent, nothing would happen, and he could put his doubts to rest. If she was guilty, he needed to know. The opportunity came the following Tuesday during a foundation meeting. Marcus excused himself to take a call, leaving his unlocked phone on the conference table where Sarah was sitting. From the hallway, he watched through the glass door as Sarah glanced at the phone, then picked it up. Marcus's heart pounded as he watched Sarah swipe through his phone screen. She was clearly accessing something, though he couldn't see exactly what from his position. After a few minutes, she set the phone down and returned to reviewing the foundation documents. When Marcus returned to the room, Sarah acted completely normal, discussing their upcoming charity gala as if nothing had happened. But Marcus felt numb with betrayal and disappointment. That evening, he checked his banking app and found 2 new unauthorized transactions, made just hours after his meeting with Sarah. The evidence seemed overwhelming now. The woman he had come to care for deeply, the woman whose daughter he loved like his own family, was stealing from him. Marcus spent the night staring at the ceiling, wrestling with anger, hurt, and disbelief. He had opened his heart for the first time in years, only to be betrayed by the very person who had inspired that openness. By morning, he had made his decision. It was time to confront Sarah with the evidence and end this painful chapter of his life. But as he prepared for what would be one of the most difficult conversations he had ever had, Marcus couldn't have imagined the shocking truth that would soon be revealed. Marcus arrived at the office early the next morning, his stomach churning with anxiety and anger. He had barely slept, replaying memories of his time with Sarah and Emma, trying to reconcile the caring woman he thought he knew with the person who appeared to be stealing from him. When Sarah arrived for work, she seemed unusually cheerful, chatting with other employees about Emma's upcoming school play. Watching her act so normally while knowing what he believed to be true made Marcus feel sick. "Sarah, could I see you in my office, please?" he said, his voice strained with the effort of remaining professional. "Of course," she replied, gathering her files. "I have those reports on the new family assistance program ready for your review." As she settled into the chair across from his desk, Marcus struggled with how to begin. Looking at her face, still trusting and warm, made this confrontation even more painful than he had anticipated. "Sarah, I need to ask you about something serious," he began slowly. "There have been some unauthorized transactions on my personal accounts. The bank has traced the activity to locations near your neighborhood, and someone with access to my phone has been using my banking information." Sarah's face went pale, and her eyes widened with shock. "Marcus, what are you saying? Are you accusing me of stealing from you?" "I don't want to believe it," Marcus said, his voice breaking slightly. "But yesterday when I left my phone on the conference table, I saw you using it. Hours later, there were new unauthorized transactions." Tears began streaming down Sarah's face. "I can't believe you think I would do such a thing. After everything you've done for Emma and me, how could you possibly think I would betray you like that?" "Then explain what you were doing with my phone," Marcus demanded, though seeing her distress made him want to take back every word. Sarah wiped her eyes and looked at him with a mixture of hurt and anger. "I was adding my contact information to your emergency contacts list. Emma made me promise to do it because she was worried that if something happened to you, no one would know to call us." Marcus felt the ground shifting beneath him. "What?" "Emma has been having nightmares about losing another important person in her life," Sarah continued, her voice shaking. "She lost her father when she was 2, and the idea of losing you terrifies her. She made me promise to make sure we were in your phone as emergency contacts so we could help you if you ever got hurt." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He remembered Emma asking him about emergency contacts a few weeks earlier, wondering who would take care of him if he got sick like she had been. At the time, he had brushed off her concern with a joke, not realizing how seriously she had taken it. "Sarah, Marcus began, but she cut him off. "I trusted you," she said, standing up abruptly. "I trusted you with my daughter's life, with our future, with everything that matters to me. And you think I'm a thief who would steal from the man who saved my child?" The evidence seemed overwhelming, Marcus said weakly. "What evidence?" Sarah demanded. "That I live in a neighborhood where someone else might have used a public computer? That I touched your phone to add emergency contact information at my daughter's request? That's not evidence, Marcus. That's paranoia and prejudice." Marcus realized with growing horror that she was absolutely right. He had jumped to conclusions based on circumstantial evidence and his own deep-seated trust issues. The fear of being betrayed had made him see deception where none existed. "Sarah, please sit down," he said desperately. "I made a terrible mistake. I know you're not responsible for this, do you?" she asked, her voice cold. "Because it seems like the moment something went wrong in your perfect world, you immediately suspected the poor single mother you were helping. Did it ever occur to you that someone with real criminal intent might have targeted you because of your public charity work? That maybe making yourself visible as a wealthy philanthropist might attract the attention of actual thieves?" Marcus felt ashamed as he realized she was absolutely right about that too. His increased public profile through the foundation's work had made him a more visible target for fraud. "I'm sorry," he said, though the words felt inadequate. "I know I've hurt you and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. My own fears and past experiences clouded my judgment, but that's no excuse for what I've put you through." Sarah sat back down, though her posture remained rigid. "Your past experiences?" Marcus took a deep breath and told her something he had never shared with anyone else. "When I was 12, my father's best friend and business partner embezzled money from their company. We lost everything. Our house, our savings, our sense of security. My father never recovered from the betrayal, and it destroyed our family. I swore I would never let anyone get close enough to hurt me like that again. Until we came along, Sarah said quietly. Until you came along, Marcus confirmed. You and Emma made me want to trust again, to open my heart again. But when this banking situation arose, all those old fears came rushing back. I'm not trying to excuse my behavior, just explain it. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. So what happens now? You've accused me of theft based on nothing but suspicion and fear. How are we supposed to work together? How are we supposed to maintain any kind of relationship? I don't know, Marcus admitted. I know I've probably destroyed any chance of earning back your trust, but I want to try. You and Emma mean more to me than anyone has in years. Emma asks about you every day, Sarah said, her voice softening slightly. She considers you family. She's going to be heartbroken if you disappear from her life because of this. I don't want to disappear, Marcus said earnestly. I want to make this right if you'll let me. Before Sarah could respond, Marcus's assistant knocked on the office door. Mr. Reed? The bank investigator is here with an update on the fraud case. He says it's urgent. Send him in, Marcus said, grateful for the interruption that might provide some answers. The investigator entered with a grim expression. Mr. Reed, we've identified the person responsible for the unauthorized transactions. It was your former personal assistant, Janet Morrison. She had access to your personal information from her previous employment and has been using it to make small regular withdrawals from your accounts. Marcus felt the last piece of his world shift back into place. Janet? But she left my employment 6 months ago. She kept copies of your personal information and has been using it systematically. We have security camera footage of her at various ATMs making withdrawals with cloned cards. She's been arrested and has confessed to the crimes. After the investigator left, Marcus and Sarah sat in stunned silence. Finally, Sarah spoke. Well, she said with bitter irony, I guess that clears up the mystery. Marcus looked at her with profound regret. Sarah, I am so sorry. I've wronged you in the worst possible way. Yes, you have, she agreed. The question is, what are you going to do about it? The following days were the longest of Marcus's life. Sarah had requested time off to think about their situation, leaving him alone with the full weight of his mistake. He threw himself into work, but nothing could distract him from the hollow feeling in his chest every time he thought about the hurt in Sarah's eyes. Emma's absence was even harder to bear. For months, her laughter had brightened his days, and her innocent questions had made him see the world differently. Now his penthouse felt emptier than ever, filled only with the echo of what he had lost through his own foolishness. On Thursday evening, Marcus received an unexpected visitor. Sarah's neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who had occasionally watched Emma, appeared at his office building. Mr. Reed, she said when his security guard called up, I need to speak with you about Sarah and Emma. It's important. Curious and concerned, Marcus agreed to see her. Mrs. Patterson was a small, dignified woman in her 70s, and she looked at him with sharp, intelligent eyes. I've known Sarah for 3 years, she began without preamble. I watched her struggle to keep food on the table while saving every penny for Emma's medical bills. I've seen her go without meals so her daughter could eat. I've watched her work herself to exhaustion, never complaining, always putting Emma first. Marcus nodded, unsure why she was telling him this. That girl has never taken anything that didn't belong to her, not even when she was desperate, Mrs. Patterson continued. When Emma was at her sickest and Sarah had no money left, she found a $100 bill in the hospital parking lot. You know what she did? She turned it in to the lost and found, even though she needed that money more than she needed air to breathe. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Mrs. Patterson, why are you telling me this? Because Emma cries, herself to sleep every night asking when Uncle Marcus is coming back, the elderly woman said sternly. And because Sarah sits by her window after Emma's asleep staring at her phone hoping you'll call. That girl loves you, Mr. Reed, though God knows why after what you've done. She told you what happened? She told me you accused her of stealing from you. Mrs. Patterson replied bluntly. And I came here to tell you that if you believe that for even 1 second, you're the biggest fool I've ever met. After Mrs. Patterson left, Marcus sat in his office until well past midnight, thinking about everything she had said. Sarah's character, her integrity, her love for Emma, all of it pointed to the truth he had been too blind and fearful to see. The next morning, Marcus made a decision. He canceled all his meetings and drove to the flower shop, then to the toy store, then to Sarah's apartment building. He sat in his car for nearly an hour, rehearsing what he wanted to say, before finally working up the courage to go to her door. Sarah answered on the second knock, looking surprised to see him. She was wearing a simple dress and had clearly been cleaning, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Even in casual clothes, she looked beautiful to him. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" "I came to apologize," he said, offering her the bouquet of flowers, "and to ask if you'll let me try to make things right." Sarah looked at the flowers but didn't take them. "Emma's at school," she said quietly. "You shouldn't be here when she gets home unless you plan to stay in her life. She's been through enough disappointment." "I want to stay in her life," Marcus said earnestly. "I want to stay in your life too if you'll have me. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm hoping you'll give me one anyway." Sarah stepped aside to let him enter her apartment. The space was small but immaculately clean, filled with Emma's artwork and photos of their life together. Marcus noticed a drawing Emma had made of the three of them at the park, stuck to the refrigerator with a magnet. "Sarah, I need you to understand something," Marcus began. "What I did wasn't really about you. It was about me and my own fear of being hurt again. That doesn't excuse it. But I want you to know that deep down, I always knew you couldn't have done what I accused you of." "Then why did you accuse me?" Sarah asked, sitting down on her couch but not inviting him to join her. "Because I was scared," Marcus admitted. "I was scared of how much I care about you and Emma. I was scared of being vulnerable. I was scared of trusting someone completely and having that trust betrayed again." "So you betrayed our trust first," Sarah said softly. "You hurt us before we could hurt you." Marcus felt tears stinging his eyes. "Yes, and it was the worst mistake I've ever made." They sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Sarah spoke again. "Emma asks about you every day. She made me promise to tell her if you called or came to visit. She doesn't understand why you haven't been around." "What have you told her?" "That Uncle Marcus is busy with work," Sarah replied. "I didn't want to destroy her image of you, even though you broke my heart." The simple honesty of her words devastated Marcus. "I broke my own heart too," he said quietly. "These past few days without you and Emma have been miserable. You've both become the most important people in my world." "Important enough to trust us?" Sarah asked. "Important enough to trust completely," Marcus replied. "Important enough to love without reservation." Sarah's eyes widened at his words. "Love?" Marcus took a deep breath. "I love you, Sarah. I love Emma. I love the family we've become together. I know I've ruined everything with my stupidity and fear, but I had to tell you how I feel." Before Sarah could respond, they heard the sound of small feet running up the stairs outside. Emma burst through the door, stopping short when she saw Marcus sitting in their living room. "Uncle Marcus," she shrieked, running into his arms. "You came back. Mommy said you were busy, but I knew you'd come back because you love us." Marcus held Emma tightly, breathing in the sweet scent of her shampoo and feeling his heart break and heal simultaneously. "I do love you, Princess, more than anything in the whole world." "Are you going to stay for dinner?" Emma asked excitedly. "Mommy's making spaghetti, and I learned a new song at school that I want to sing for you." Marcus looked over Emma's head at Sarah, who was watching them with tears in her eyes. "That depends on whether your mommy wants me to stay." Emma turned to her mother with pleading eyes. "Please, Mommy, can Uncle Marcus stay?" Sarah looked at her daughter's hopeful face, then at Marcus, who was clearly holding his breath waiting for her answer. "He can stay for dinner," Sarah said finally. "But after that, Uncle Marcus and I need to have a very important grown-up conversation about trust and forgiveness and what it means to be a family." Marcus felt hope blooming in his chest for the first time since this nightmare had begun. It wouldn't be easy to rebuild what he had damaged, but Sarah was giving him a chance. That was more than he had dared to hope for. "I understand," he said solemnly. And Sarah? Thank you. For everything. As Emma chattered excitedly about her day at school, Marcus realized that the real treasure he had been chasing all his life wasn't money or success. It was sitting right here in this modest apartment, in the form of a brave little girl and her remarkable mother who had somehow found the grace to forgive him despite everything. 6 months later, Marcus stood at the altar of a small church, watching as Emma walked down the aisle scattering flower petals with the serious concentration only a 5-year-old could muster. She had insisted on being the flower girl, declaring that she needed to make sure everything was perfect for Mommy and Uncle Marcus's wedding day. Sarah appeared at the back of the church, and Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. She wore a simple but elegant white dress, her hair flowing softly around her shoulders, and she carried a bouquet of the same flowers he had brought to apologize that day at her apartment. But it was her smile that took his breath away, radiant, trusting, and full of love. The months following their reconciliation had not been easy. Rebuilding trust required patience, honesty, and countless difficult conversations. Sarah had made it clear that forgiveness was not the same as forgetting, and that Marcus would need to prove, through his actions, that he truly understood the magnitude of his mistake. Marcus had thrown himself into that effort with the same determination he had once applied to building his business empire. He attended therapy sessions to understand and address his trust issues. He gradually opened up to Sarah about his childhood trauma and the fears that had driven his behavior. Most importantly, he learned to recognize and communicate his feelings before they could fester into destructive doubt. Sarah had been patient but firm throughout the process. She refused to simply sweep his accusations under the rug or pretend they hadn't happened. Instead, she insisted they work through the underlying issues that had caused the crisis. Her strength and wisdom during this difficult period only deepened Marcus's love and respect for her. Emma, with a child's remarkable resilience, had bounced back quickly once Marcus returned to their lives. She seemed to intuitively understand that the adults had worked through their problems, and she threw herself into planning for the day when Marcus would become her real daddy instead of just uncle. Marcus. The transformation in Marcus extended far beyond his personal relationship with Sarah and Emma. His experience with nearly losing them had fundamentally changed his approach to business and life. He restructured his company's priorities, focusing more on sustainable practices and employee welfare than pure profit maximization. The foundation Sarah managed had grown into a significant force for good, helping hundreds of families navigate medical crises and financial hardships. Marcus often said that Sarah had taught him the difference between being rich and being wealthy. True wealth, he learned, was measured in lives touched and hearts changed. As Sarah reached the altar, Marcus stepped forward to take her hand. The minister, who had counseled them through their reconciliation, smiled warmly as he began the ceremony. "Dearly beloved," he began, "we are gathered here today to witness the union of two people who have learned that love is not just about the easy times, but about choosing each other even through the difficult ones." Emma, standing proudly next to them as the flower girl, whispered loudly enough for the front row to hear, "This is the best day ever." Marcus and Sarah exchanged vows they had written themselves. Sarah's vows spoke of learning to trust again, of finding strength in vulnerability, and of building a future based on honesty and communication. Marcus's vows acknowledged his mistakes, promised to cherish and protect their love, and committed to being the husband and father their family deserved. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Emma cheered and threw the remaining flower petals into the air, creating a shower of pink and white blossoms around the newly married couple. At the reception, Marcus's business associates mingled with Sarah's friends from the hospital and their neighborhood. The guest list reflected how much Marcus's world had expanded beyond the narrow circle of wealth and status that had once defined his social life. During his speech, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. "A year ago I thought I had everything a man could want," he said, looking out at the assembled guests. "I had money, success, and what I believed was security. But I was actually the poorest man in the room because I had no one to share it with." He turned to look at Sarah, who was sitting beside him with Emma on her lap. "Sarah and Emma didn't just change my life, they saved it. They taught me what real wealth looks like. It looks like a little girl's laugh echoing through your house. It looks like someone who believes in you even when you don't deserve it. It looks like family. Emma tugged on his sleeve and whispered something in his ear. Marcus smiled and nodded, then addressed the crowd again. Emma has asked me to make an announcement. She wants everyone to know that now that I'm officially her daddy, she's planning to teach me how to make the best paper airplanes in the world. Apparently this is a very important daddy skill that I'm currently lacking. The crowd laughed warmly, as Emma beamed with pride at having her message delivered. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Marcus found himself on the terrace of the reception hall, holding Emma as she dozed against his shoulder. Sarah joined them, still in her wedding dress but with her shoes off and her hair slightly mussed from dancing. "Tired, Mrs. Reed?" Marcus asked softly. "Perfectly happy, Mr. Reed," Sarah replied, leaning against his free arm. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the city lights twinkle below them. Marcus thought about the random chain of events that had brought them together. A chance encounter at a hospital, a moment of unexpected generosity, and the long journey of learning to trust and be trusted. "Do you remember what you said to me that first day at the hospital?" Sarah asked quietly. "You said sometimes we meet people who remind us what's truly important." "I remember," Marcus replied, though I had no idea how prophetic those words would turn out to be. "Emma's going to want to hear the story of how we met when she's older," Sarah said with a smile. "How do you think we should tell it?" Marcus considered the question seriously. "We'll tell her the truth, that sometimes the most precious things in life come to us when we're not looking for them, and that love requires courage, the courage to trust, to forgive, and to keep choosing each other every single day." Emma stirred slightly in his arms and mumbled, "Daddy?" "I'm right here, Princess," Marcus whispered, and his heart swelled with the knowledge that this beautiful, brave little girl was truly his daughter now. As they headed inside to thank their guests and begin their new life as a family, Marcus realized that his story had come full circle. He had started as a man who had everything but felt empty, and had become a man who understood that true richness came not from what you accumulated, but from what you were willing to give and receive. The billionaire who had once chased wealth and status had discovered that the greatest treasure of all was love. Messy, complicated, challenging, and absolutely worth every moment of the journey to find it. Years later, when people would ask Marcus about the secret to his success, he would smile and tell them about a little girl who taught him that the best investments were the ones you made in other people's hearts. And if they asked him about his greatest achievement, he would point to the family photo on his desk and say, "Right there. That's everything that matters." The wallet that had started this journey, the one that had never actually been stolen, still sat in Marcus's desk drawer, though he rarely used it anymore. Instead, it served as a reminder of the man he used to be and the incredible transformation that love had made possible. Sometimes the most valuable things in life came not from what was taken from you, but from what you chose to give away.